Lions took today off, but yesterday got a little physical.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We got another episode for you here on Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you on a Wednesday, July 23rd and a Thursday, July 24th. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you as well to our everydayers that watch or listen to the podcast daily. We thank you. There's been big transactions with the Lions over the years, but our everydayers over at Mid-States Advisors with a big signing of Dylan Straka. Doesn't get much bigger than that. We appreciate our everydayers there at Mid-States Advisors in Birmingham. We are brought to you today. Let's do a little promo read here today. On a Wednesday, we are brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Follow us on all social media platforms. Busy show today. Things got a little bit physical down at 222 Rodwood Drive yesterday, including a player getting kicked out of practice. We will get into that momentarily. Also, an update on Alim McNeill, maybe some good news from General Manager Brad Holmes, who was on the Sirius XM NFL radio show yesterday with Pat Kerwin, or maybe it was Jim Miller and Dan Miller, or Pat Kerwin and Dan Miller. I'm messing that up. All I know is the legendary Albert Dale was engineering. But Brad Holmes was on Sirius XM NFL, had an update on Alim McNeill. One of the national talking heads is taking the under on the 10.5 wins of the Lions. And he's taking all the unders, he says. We'll explain what Nick Wright had to say about the Lions, and an update from Hallis Hall in Chicago, where Ben Johnson is none too pleased with what's going on with the Bears offense at training camp. How about that? So we'll get into all that today here on a Wednesday, Locked On Lions. Tomorrow on the show, Detroit Football Network Lions beat writer and great dude Justin Rogers is going to join the show. We haven't had J-Raj on in a while, but Justin's going to come on tomorrow and talk Lions with us. It's been the 1-year anniversary this week of when he launched his own website, Detroit Football Network. I get the emails. I subscribe. You should too. Justin is fantastic covering the Lions. A newsworthy item before I talk about what took place yesterday at practice, and that is that the Lions TV network, which seemingly changes every year. Every year there's a different booth. It's amazing. Every year it seems like the Lions have a different broadcast booth for the preseason games. And the Lions are going to have, I believe, 3 preseason games on Fox 2. And now our buddy Jason Ross, who I really like a lot, and I know has got some more assignments now at ESPN and Big Ten Network, but Jason Ross and Golden Tate are no longer doing the Lions preseason games. That was a 1-year experiment, apparently. Well, Jason did it for 2 years, but he and Golden did last year. Now, Jason Benetti, the TV voice of the Tigers, of course, does national games, college football, MLB, some NFL. Jason Benetti, who many of you really like on the Tigers TV, is going to be on with TJ Lang, who will slide over from radio for the preseason. And Danny Rogers, our friend, will be on the sidelines again. I think it's her 5th year doing sidelines. But Jason Ross and Golden Tate, no longer the broadcast duo. Shout out to Jay Ross, man. What a great kid. Great set of pipes. I love the fact that there was some new blood in this, at times, very stale market when it comes to announcers and talk shows and everything else. Jason Ross, I thought, did a good job. You're going to hear him on BTN football games and ESPN and stuff, but he's out. Jason Benetti and TJ Lang are in. So we had 1 year of Golden Tate. Golden struggled. I don't think there's any question about it. He really hadn't done games before, but I'm sure Tiger fans that love Benetti and all the comedy that he provides and all the yuck, well, you'll get that on Lions broadcast for the 3 preseason games. All right. Yesterday was interesting down in Allen Park at the Meyer Performance Center. Dan Campbell had to stop practice yesterday And we didn't get to this yesterday afternoon, but I want to bring it up today. Things got very, very physical. Brian Branch hit Tim Patrick, some pushing and shoving. And then I think on the very next play, Maurice Norris hit a receiver out of bounds. There was a scrum. There wasn't a fight, just a scrum. Dan Campbell had to stop practice, pretty much gather the team and tell them to cut out the physicality this early in practice. I mean, they're not even in pads yet. All right. And guys were getting hit. And he kicked Maurice Norris, the backup safety, out of practice. Now, I think this about the Lions. I think the players hear it. I think the coaches hear it, right? There are a lot of naysayers when it comes to the Lions. There's many people that believe that this team cannot get back to where they were 2 years ago in the NFC Championship game. And I think that a lot of people and a lot of the players are hearing Frank Ragnar retired. Ben Johnson's gone. Aaron Glenn's gone. McNeill is hurt. Onwuzurike's out for the year. I think they hear it. And I think this team is out to set a tone that they want to be physical. They want to be tough. And they are physical. This is one of the most physical teams in the NFL. All right. The proof is in the pudding over the last couple of years. When you look at the records of teams that have to play the week after they played the Lions and how much they struggled, especially last year, first 6 or 7 weeks, every team the Lions played the next week, they went out and got their asses kicked. But I think the Lions want to be physical and tough and want to set an early tone in training camp. The problem is you're not in pads yet. And if guys are going to get hurt, getting hit by their own teammates, not in pads, then they should be kicked out of practice. Maurice Norris is a fringe roster guy. He might not make it. And to get booted out of practice like he was yesterday is not a good sign for him. Now, again, the Lions like him. They're undrafted free agents have made this roster before. He was on the team last year. Heck, he was on the field last year when the Lions played the Commanders in the playoffs. So with all of that being said, though, you've got to be smart. And I love the fact that Dan Campbell stopped practice yesterday to tell his guys to cut it out, right? It was probably a good thing today that the team had the day off after practicing 3 straight days to start off training camp. And again, a lot of these are mandatory things with the league, and there's only a certain number of hours you can be out there and everything else. But I think Dan Campbell he wants his team to be physical, and he's going to want to put them in pads, and they're going to be in pads, and they're going to hit and everything else, right? But this is not the old days of 2-a-days and 3 and 4 hour practices and pads all the time. But you have to be smart. All right. Brian Branch hitting Tim Patrick, Maurice Norris getting kicked out of practice. That can't with the way this team had the wear and tear last year, especially on defense. They cannot afford any more injuries. All right. We've talked about it with Onwuzurike being out. Now Pascal out into September. Mekhi Wingo into September. Roy Lopez has a sore foot right now. This team has got this. They've got to be physical. They want to tone set in camp, but they also got to be smart about it. So I like the fact that Dan Campbell put the team together yesterday after a lot of pushing and shoving and said, cut it out. Stop. And this will happen again when the Lions have joint practices with the Dolphins and with the Panthers. They'll be pushing and shoving. But at least you're in pads, number one. And number two, you're hitting the other team. You're not hitting your teammates. So, and by the way, a shout out to Dan Campbell, spotted today at one of my favorite spots, brunch spots, the Daily Jam in Farmington Hills. He was spotted there today, this morning. So I love that place. They've got very good omelets, breakfast tacos, solid. All right. Coming up next, let's get into it. Brad Holmes on Sirius XM NFL Radio yesterday as part of their training camp tour. I know Dan Miller was in there with him. Brad Holmes had some interesting news about Alim McNeill, which I think will certainly help. And it's good news for sure. We will get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. And as we told you earlier, you ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. All right. Every day you're doing things transactionally, and maybe it's multiple accounts, you and your wife, you and your girlfriend, you and your husband, whatever it is. All right. If you share finances with somebody, Monarch's going to help you stay on the same page. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. And Locked On Lions today is sponsored by Rugiet. Guys, you probably heard people talk about Viagra. They talk about Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, all right? But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours. You can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options have not worked for you, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. All right, so we've been bummed out here on Locked On Lions talking about the injuries that have occurred and have accumulated along the Lions' interior of their defensive line. And I mentioned it yesterday. Marcus Davenport out on the edge, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I'm expecting to have a big year. He's off to a really good start in training camp. And what I loved about Marcus yesterday when he met with the media, they were like, hey, people talking about you, people excited about you. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, you're off to a great start. And Marcus Davenport said, it doesn't matter what people say. I kind of want to fly under the radar. I don't want to be talked about. I just want to stay healthy, help my team. Marcus does not like a lot of attention. He is not a guy you're going to see on the podium a lot after games or even a camp or whatever else it is. But you love how humble he is. He's just dying to play football. And over the last 12 years, or over the last 3 years, he's only played in 12 games. He was banged up when he was in Minnesota, banged up when he was in New Orleans. He's been banged up here, right? Last year, signed with the Lions, was looking good the first game, and then on week 2, done for the season. So Marcus Davenport is healthy and excited, but you look at the interior of the defensive line, the tackles, and it's a problem. And the best guy on this team when it comes to defensive tackle is Alim McNeill. And McNeill, as we know, tore his ACL last year in November. And it's likely, at least according to Dan Campbell it was, that Alim would miss at least the first 2 months of the season. Yesterday, Brad Holmes was on Sirius XM, NFL channel. I believe it was Dan Miller, I know, is one of the hosts. And he was asked about Alim McNeill. And Brad Holmes gave some good news and a good update. Brad said, quote, still having Alim on his way back, which I think that, has a potential to be a little bit earlier than expected because he's doing great right now, end quote. I love that. All right, I didn't expect Alim McNeill to be back until, if I look at the schedule, you're talking, I was thinking November 9th against the Commanders, maybe at the earliest, coming back from a torn ACL. What if he could play in that November 2nd game against the Vikings? You could get him back a little bit earlier. DJ Reader, Tyleek Williams, Roy Lopez, Pascal when healthy, Patrick O'Connor, Mekhi Wingo, Broderick Martin, who, by the way, left yesterday's practice with a foot injury. I'm relying on Broderick Martin like I'm relying on winning the lottery. Raekwon Williams, Chris Smith. I mean, there's some depth there, but this is going to be a rough start to the year, I think, trying to stop the run. You're asking a lot of a rookie in Tyleik Williams next to DJ Reader to go up against Josh Jacobs and company in week 1. But if they can get Alim McNeill back earlier, he impacts the game. He is one of the top defensive tackles in the game. He's become such a good player, and they've got to have him. So for Brad Holmes to come out and say, hey, we might get him back earlier than we thought, and that he's progressing well is massive news for this team because they need him. You know, Onwuzurike out for the year. I mean, there's just somebody's got to step up. What if Tyleik Williams, their first round pick, turns out to be really, really good? That'd be great. They need Williams and they need Ratledge to be good right away. Those guys are playing right on the ball. Ratledge is snapping the ball. Williams is on the ball. So at least we're getting some good news on Alim McNeill, which I think is great. All right. Nick Wright from Fox Sports 1 is one that is not bullish at all on the Detroit Lions. He was on his show. I think it's First Things First, or one of those shows on FS1. They've canceled a lot of them. But he was on his show the other day and took a little bit of a dig at the Lions. Now, again, Nick Wright is a big Chiefs fan. He's probably still butthurt over the Lions going into Kansas City and beating them a couple of years ago. But he is one national pundit that is not high on the Lions. Take a listen. FS1.
I'll take all the unders on the Lions. I'm not saying they're flat out missed the playoffs, but I think they could. But I don't think they are top fringe NFC contenders. If you can get pressure on him, particularly up the middle, his lack of creativity and lack of ability to improvise is when he can become bad Jared Goff. He has been great, Jared Goff, and you deserve credit for calling it out. He deserves credit for it with the Lions. When you say Detroit Lions, one of the first things you think of is a mauling offensive line. Their biggest concern is the offensive line. A lot of guys coming back from injury. I don't know the defense is going to be great. And so I think they're an incredibly tough division. They have an incredibly tough schedule. And this is the other reason, Brew, I worry about them. You feel like they need a great start. And I say 0-3 is on the board. They have the quarterback they believe in and the head coach who is their culture setter. And that should guarantee them a floor. It still is uneasy times, in my opinion.
All right, so Nick Wright, not a believer in the Lions, talked about that they could start the year 0-3. Let me tell you something right now, all right? The Lions aren't losing to the Bears in week 2. They're not. They're not losing in that home opener. Right now, again, a lot could change before September 14th, all right? Knock on wood, all right? Hendon Hooker or Kyle Allen could be playing. I don't know, all right? There's a lot that could change. But I think the Lions home opener, 1:00 on Fox on September 14th. I do not see them losing to Chicago. The Bears will be coming off a short week. Do I think the Green Bay game spells trouble on week 1? I do. I'm very concerned about that game with all the injuries that the Lions have suffered and have right now, especially, like I said, going up against that run game, Josh Jacobs, etc. And it's never easy to win at Lambeau anyway. And to be honest, the Packers are kind of due to beat the Lions. Lions have owned the Packers for 3 years. With that being said, to sit here and go, oh, yeah, I could see it 0-3 possibly. And look, the Lions do have some concerns. Nick Wright is correct about the offensive line. But what have we seen from Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Hank Fraley over the years? They've plugged different guys in. Right? Coyote Awashika has played games. All right? Michael Neese has played games. And the Lions have not. Dan Skipper has started games. And they have not missed a beat. Losing Zeitler and Ragnow are huge. They're massive losses. Yes, I'm concerned. But just to go, no, I'm just taking all the unders on the Lions. I think they're in trouble. And the schedule's difficult. It is. It's very difficult right now. That might change. The division has to play Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago. They've got to play the AFC North and the NFC East just like the Lions do. So he wants to take all the unders, fine. I think the Lions are going to be okay. I do. But that's another national analyst, talking head, whatever, that's going against the Lions. This team won 15 games last year, folks, with a decimated defense. So there's more haters out there. All right, coming up next, I'll hate on the Chicago Bears. Hey, everybody, we are getting to that time as this episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. That's right, fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft boards ready, buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, we here at Locked On Lions are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran, making your millionth league, all right? Yahoo Fantasy is great. Used it for years. You love how smooth the draft day experience is. All right. You run through Yahoo for a while now. It's an easy setup. Their mobile app is good. And the trash talk just hits different in those message boards. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August the 4th. Stay tuned to get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, so my man, the guy I like to refer to as the executive producer of this podcast, the great Nathan Litke. Shout out to Nate, his brother Brandon, Erica, the whole crew. Rainey, I can name all the kids, but we'll do that another time. Nate sends me this tweet today from Adam Hogue, who covers the Chicago Bears, led by the one and only Benedict Johnson. Quote from Hogue: "First Bears practice is in the books, and there were some growing pains." Oh boy. Ben Johnson got on Caleb and the first team multiple times. I love how they call him Caleb. It's like Madonna. The guy's been there for 1 year. Ben Johnson got on Caleb and the first team multiple times and eventually pulled the entire unit in 7-on-7s after they couldn't get lined up twice in a row. No sign of Luther Burden. End quote. So Ben Johnson, first day in the books, frustrated with Caleb Williams in the offense, and pulled the unit because they couldn't get lined up properly. Now, again, all right, it's July 23rd. The Bears have almost 2 months until they play the Lions. But I love this stuff. I eat it with a spoon. All right, I would get double battered and Dixie fried. But give me this all day. That the Bears are having issues. And I understand, all right, they've got a lot of talent. Colston Loveland, I was watching some video of him the other day. That dude's going to be really good. All right. The Bears have two very good tight ends. If Burton is there, you know, their receiving core is good. Their running backs are good. Their offensive line is much better than it's been. All right. And Ben Johnson's a really good coach. You heard Nate Burleson right here on Locked On Lions on Monday talk about just how creative he is, but how great he is with timing. The timing that Ben Johnson had with his play calls. But the big question for me is, can Caleb Williams do it? If they can't even line up properly on day one, after Caleb has said, I've been at the facility more. I've been working with Ben Johnson. I got to get it down. And already 1 day in, and the Bears are having issues just lining up in 7-on-7s, and Ben Johnson's not having it. This to me is funny. All right. Ben took his shots at Jared Goff. I know a lot of it was playful in the offseason and everything else. And also took his shots at Matt LaFleur. But Ben Johnson's, look, if Caleb Williams can't do it, and 1 or 2 years in with Ben Johnson, it's been determined that this is just not the guy, Ben Johnson is not going to get fired, because Caleb Williams bad. Caleb Williams is just bad. And it'll be just another coach that, felt the disappointment of what the first pick in the draft 2 years ago could or could not do. All right. But I just think Ben Johnson, he got a chance to work with a veteran quarterback. He inherited Jared. Jared Goff came to Detroit. Ben Johnson became the OC, and the two of them clicked. And Jared had a lot of years under his belt. There is pressure on Chicago to win and win right now. The media in Chicago, the fans in Chicago, they're not waiting around anymore. They believe now they've got their quarterback, and now they've given him the coach. So I just find it funny and entertaining that day one of practice, and Johnson's like, first team offense off the field. You can't even line up right. There's going to be some growing pains there. So for all these folks that are picking Chicago to maybe sneak in and win the division and all this stuff, the Bears are improved. They're improved. All right. But there's questions about the Lions. All right. We've talked about it on this show. Interior of the offensive line, interior of the D line, coaching, coordinator. Sure. They got a rookie quarterback in Minnesota. Right. They won 14 games last year with somebody else. And I like McCarthy, but they won 14 games with somebody else. Chicago, Caleb Williams is no lock. Green Bay, that secondary, the corners especially, very questionable. What about the receiving core in Green Bay? They're going to be healthy? Is Jordan Love the answer or not? Are we going to see Jordan Love from the Dallas playoff game 2 years ago or Jordan Love from the Lions game last year in Green Bay? All right, Justin Rogers, Detroit Football Network, is going to join us tomorrow on this podcast. Of course, longtime Lions beat writer at the Detroit News, now running his own thing at DFN. He will join us tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everybody. Don't look now. AL Central, don't look now.